Coronavirus strikes the economy. I'm Adrienne Pedersen. Today on Upfront. Fears of a pandemic rock financial markets. Today on Upfront, the effect the outbreak is having on the economy and the advice financial advisors are giving. Plus, Justice Daniel Kelly.
I think that's an ugly slander. And it's a slander because it's a lie.
He responds to his opponent's statement that the court feels corrupt. And preventing teen suicides, the program bringing hope to schools.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Thank you for joining us. We begin today with rising worries over the novel coronavirus, which has now killed more than a dozen people in the United States. Most of the deaths have been in Washington state at a Seattle area nursing home. Numerous states have declared emergencies. Here in Wisconsin, coronavirus cases so far have been limited, and state health officials say the risk right now is low.
It's possible and in fact likely that we will detect additional cases in the coming days or weeks.
You don't have to be feeling ill to be feeling the effects of the coronavirus. The outbreak has rocked the financial markets, and it's affecting the economy. Airlines are losing money, while some businesses have canceled large gatherings or asked employees to work from home altogether. We're talking more about that now with Tom Newman. He's a financial expert with Drake & Associates. Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So, companies asking people to work from home, doing other things. How is this affecting business, not only across the country, but specifically here in Wisconsin?
Yeah, it's important to understand that we're kind of at the forefront of trying to understand what the impact this is going to have, not only globally, but locally here. So governments and private companies are trying their best to prevent the spread of it. And so what they're asking workers to do is work from home, like you mentioned, or even shutter their doors for a period of time. And that could have some dramatic impact. I mean, companies could potentially lose out on profitability and sales over the short term and the long term. And so that's what's got investors a little bit spooked right now.
And just to tell people the scope of this, I was reading that Plexus in Neenah, Wisconsin expects a $40 million drop in revenue because of the effect on its suppliers.
That's exactly it. I mean, the epidemic has kind of focused primarily in China, right? But it is expanding globally. With so many companies being worldwide companies now, they do focus on their supply chains coming from the countries like China. And so when there's disruptions in the people that are actually working in China and not producing at the same levels that they historically have been, this could have down the road ramifications for companies that are here who rely on that every single day.
And maybe you don't work for one of these big companies, but what about the consumers? How could we potentially feel this? I know there are still a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, one of the biggest things is when there's disruptions like this in the supply chain, oftentimes that leads to services and goods being produced at a lower level. And that could have a ramification on prices down the road.
And Wisconsin is importing and exporting, and you don't want to scare people.
Right.
But when it comes to, I guess, the worst case scenario, what could we expect?
Yeah, we don't understand fully what this outbreak is going to have on the global economy. I do remember in periods of time, and we've experienced this before. Maybe it wasn't epidemic or virus related. I think of a time like September 11th, where something like a shock to the economy happened, where it was so unexpected that there was a knee-jerk reaction from investors, and there was a significant sell-off. And rightfully so. People were concerned and fearful. But at the end of the day, once we understood and we had governments and communities coming together to find a solution, then we saw investors kind of calm down and re-enter the market, and we would see the market increase significantly. So This is hurtful. A lot of people are losing a lot of money, but if you are taking a long-term perspective, which you should be if you're invested in the market, and you are setting yourself up with a portfolio that is risk tolerant to what you are comfortable with, you should be able to withstand a market correction like we're seeing right now.
So many people are talking about their 401ks. They're worried. I was kind of looking at mine the other day with one eye open because I didn't want to see it. I even saw a billboard warning people, don't panic and drain your 401k. What is your advice to your clients who are asking you what to do?
It is one of the hardest things, right? Emotions drive individual investor decisions on a daily basis. And what we're seeing right now is fear is driving this market correction downward. Now, we have historically, over the last 9-10 years, been in an unprecedented bull market. So there is a thought that we were in due for a correction, and this may have just been the spark to actually have that happen. But it is important to work with a financial advisor that can sit down with you, look at your individual holdings, understand the risk that you are currently taking in your portfolio, and match that up with your risk tolerance again. And if you're able to do so, you should be able to withstand this market correction and really take the long-term view rather than the short-term view.
And I imagine it's a different level of concern for someone who's maybe about to retire and has lost some money. What is your level of concern overall, would you say, with coronavirus and the economy?
It's a concern to the point where, you know, we want to make sure that we're understanding and we're staying abreast of the developing changes that happen every single day. But, you know, I work with pre-retirees and retirees, and so by nature, they tend to be more conservative, and we design portfolios that help to not only withstand market corrections like this, but also go into a mode of preservation rather than accumulation. So again, it's important to take stock of what your goals are, what your time frame is, and match that up with a risk tolerance that's appropriate.
And we need to be educated on this.
We do.
Tom
Absolutely.
Newman, financial advisor, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Coming up, my interview with Supreme Court Justice Daniel Kelly. Why don't you want to be called a conservative? And later, how Wisconsin is getting tough on porch pirates.